When Ethan Brooks walked into that mountain cafe for a blind date he never wanted, he expected awkward small talk and a polite exit. What he got instead was a woman in tears, begging him to leave before he even sat down. The entire cafe went silent, watching what looked like the worst first impression in dating history. But Ethan was a rescue medic, trained to run toward disasters, not away from them. What happened next would challenge everything both of them believed about love, loss, and second chances. This is their story. If you're watching from anywhere in the world, drop your city in the comments below and hit that like button so I can see how far this story travels. Now, let's begin. The mountain grind sat nestled between two peaks like a secret someone forgot to keep. Its windows glowed amber against the March twilight, and inside, the air smelled of burnt coffee and cinnamon rolls that had been sitting too long under heat lamps. It was the kind of place where locals came to escape the cold, not to impress anyone, which made it the perfect spot for a blind date Ethan Brooks had been guilted into attending. He pushed through the heavy wooden door at exactly 7 o'clock, because that's what responsible people did. They showed up on time, even when they didn't want to be there at all. The cafe was half full. A handful of college kids hunched over laptops in the corner. An elderly couple shared a piece of pie. Behind the counter, a barista with a nose ring looked up briefly, then went back to scrolling through her phone. Nobody paid Ethan any attention as he scanned the room, looking for someone who might be waiting for him. That's when he saw her. She sat alone near the back window, her wheelchair positioned at an angle that gave her a clear view of the entrance. She had dark curly hair pulled back into a loose ponytail, and she wore a simple gray sweater that looked soft even from a distance. Her hands rested on the armrests of her chair, fingers tapping a nervous rhythm only she could hear. Their eyes met. And then she started crying. Not quiet tears, not the kind of emotion you could politely ignore. Her face crumpled like paper, and she covered her mouth with both hands, as if trying to trap a sob that was already escaping. Her shoulders shook. People turned to look. Ethan froze in the doorway, the cold air still rushing in behind him. "Please," she said, her voice breaking across the suddenly silent cafe. "Please just go." The words hit him like a physical blow. He hadn't even said hello, hadn't introduced himself, hadn't done anything except walk through a door, and already she was falling apart. The elderly man eating pie cleared his throat uncomfortably. The college kid stopped typing. Even the barista looked up from her phone, her expression caught between concern and curiosity. Ethan's first instinct was to do exactly what she asked, to back out the door, get in his truck, and drive home to the quiet house where his son was probably already asleep. This wasn't his problem. He didn't know this woman. He'd been set up by his well-meaning sister who insisted he needed to get back out there after 3 years of single parenthood. He could text Sarah later, tell her it didn't work out, and never think about this moment again. But something stopped him. Maybe it was his training. Ethan had spent the last decade as a rescue medic in these mountains, responding to calls where people were at their absolute worst, broken, bleeding, terrified. He'd learned early that the moment someone needed help the most was usually the moment they pushed hardest to send you away. Trauma did that. Fear did that. And whatever was happening right now, this woman was terrified. So instead of leaving, Ethan let the door close behind him. He took 3 slow steps toward her table, his hands visible and empty, the way you'd approach someone on the edge of something dangerous. "I'm Ethan," he said quietly, "and I'm not going anywhere until you tell me what's wrong." She looked up at him through tears, her expression a mixture of horror and disbelief. "You don't understand. You're not supposed to be... You're not..." "Not what?" "Not able-bodied." The words came out like an accusation, like he'd committed some unforgivable crime by walking through the door on 2 working legs. Ethan blinked. "I'm sorry?" Diane said. She stopped, pressing her fingers against her temples. Her breathing was too fast, too shallow. "She told me you were also disabled, that you'd understand. That's why I agreed to this. And now you're here and you're not, and everyone's staring, and I can't do this again." Understanding crashed over Ethan like a wave. This wasn't about him at all. This was about every other date she'd been on, every other person who'd walked away, every moment she'd been made to feel like something was wrong with her instead of with them. He pulled out the chair across from her and sat down, not asking permission, not waiting for an invitation, just sitting, the way you'd sit with someone in an ambulance after the worst had already happened. Diane lied to you, he said. I'm sorry about that. But I'm here now, and you're upset. And I think we should at least figure out why before either of us leaves. She stared at him like he'd just suggested they fly to the moon. You want to stay? I drove 40 minutes to get here. Seems like a waste to turn around now. That's not... She let out a sound that was half laugh, half sob. Do you have any idea how humiliating this is? Everyone in here just watched me have a breakdown because you walked through the door. Then let's give them something else to watch. Ethan caught the barista's attention and raised 2 fingers. Can we get 2 coffees over here? Whatever she usually drinks, and something strong and black for me. The barista nodded, grateful for an excuse to do something normal. Ethan turned back to the woman across from him. Her tears had slowed, but her hands were still shaking. I'm guessing you're Lena? How did you know? Because Diane only knows one person in a wheelchair who she's been trying to set up for the last 6 months. My sister talks. A lot. Lena's eyes widened. Sarah is your sister? Unfortunately. Ethan smiled slightly, which means we've both been ambushed by 2 women who think they know what's best for us. So here's my suggestion. We drink our coffee, we talk like 2 human beings who got trapped by well-meaning relatives, and if you still want me to leave after that, I will. No questions asked. Deal? She studied his face for a long moment, searching for something. Pity, maybe, or judgment. The things she'd probably learned to look for in everyone she met. Whatever she saw, it must have been acceptable, because she finally nodded. Deal. The barista brought their coffees with impressive speed, clearly eager to diffuse whatever drama was unfolding at the back table. Ethan wrapped his hands around the mug, grateful for the warmth. Outside the window, snow had started to fall, light, delicate flakes that disappeared the moment they hit the ground. So, he said, want to tell me what just happened? Lena traced the rim of her cup with one finger. What happened is, I prepared myself for one thing and got blindsided by something completely different. Story of my life, honestly. Diane told you I was disabled. She said you understood what it was like, that you'd been through something hard. She made it sound like we'd have that in common. Lena's voice was bitter. I should have known better. People always do this. They think disability is some kind of universal experience that automatically bonds people together, like we're all in some secret club. Are you saying you only wanted to meet me if I was also in a wheelchair? No. She looked up sharply. That's not what I meant. I'm tired of being someone's inspiration porn. Tired of guys showing up out of curiosity or guilt or because their friends dared them to date the girl in the chair. I thought if Diane said you understood, it meant you'd actually been through something real, not just showed up because you felt sorry for me. Ethan took a sip of his coffee. It was terrible, burnt and bitter, the kind of coffee that came from a pot that had been sitting too long. Perfect, in other words, for this conversation. My wife died 3 years ago, he said. The words dropped into the space between them like stones into still water. Lena went very still. I'm sorry, she whispered. So am I. Every day. Ethan set his mug down carefully. Her name was Michelle. She was driving home from her parents' house one night when someone ran a red light going 70 in a school zone. She died instantly. The other driver walked away with barely a scratch. Our son was 5 years old. He didn't talk for 3 months after we buried her. Lena's expression had shifted completely. The defensiveness was gone, replaced by something that looked like recognition. I didn't tell you that to make you feel bad for me, Ethan continued. I told you because you're right. I do understand what it's like when your entire life gets rewritten in a single moment. When the future you planned disappears and you have to figure out how to build something new from the pieces that are left. So if that's what Diane meant when she said I'd understand, then yeah, I guess she was telling the truth. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The cafe hummed around them, the hiss of the espresso machine, the low murmur of other conversations, the scrape of chairs against the wooden floor. Normal sounds from a normal evening, which felt almost absurd given what they were discussing. I was training for the Olympics, Lena said finally. Swimming. I'd been working toward it since I was 12 years old, 6 hours in the pool every day, special diet, private coaches. My entire identity was wrapped up in being fast in the water. And then one night, a drunk driver crossed the center line on a mountain road. Ethan's chest tightened. When? 4 years ago. I was 26, had just qualified for the trials. My coach said I had a real shot at making the team. She looked down at her wheelchair. I woke up in the hospital with a crushed spine and a surgeon telling me I'd never walk again, never swim competitively, never have the life I'd spent 14 years building. Jesus. Yeah. She laughed, but there was no humor in it. Everyone kept telling me I was lucky to be alive. Lucky the paralysis wasn't higher. Lucky I still had my arms, my mind, my future. But all I could think was that the future I wanted was gone. And nobody seemed to understand that lucky and devastated can exist in the same body at the same time. Ethan knew that feeling. He'd lived it for months after Michelle died, when people told him he was lucky to have Noah, lucky to have his health, lucky to still be young enough to find love again someday, as if any of that erased the hole his wife's death had torn through the center of his life. So, what happened? He asked. After the hospital? Rehab. Months of it. Learning how to do everything differently. Get dressed, shower, cook, drive. Relearning independence from scratch. Lena's fingers tightened around her coffee cup. And then I had to figure out who I was if I wasn't a swimmer. Turns out, I didn't have a good answer. I'd spent so much time in the pool that I'd never developed any other interests, any other skills. I was just empty. But you're here now, so something must have changed. Therapy, a lot of it. And eventually I went back to school, got a degree in physical therapy, ironically enough. Now I work at a rehabilitation center helping other people adjust to their new normals. She met his eyes. I tell them the same thing my therapist told me, that grief and growth aren't opposites, that you can mourn what you lost and still build something meaningful from what remains. Ethan felt something shift in his chest. This woman sitting across from him wasn't broken. She was a survivor. And more than that, she'd taken her survival and turned it into something that helped other people survive too. That's incredible, he said. It's necessary, Lena corrected. There's a difference. Is there? You tell me. You're a rescue medic, right? That's what Sarah said. Ethan nodded. 12 years now I work search and rescue in these mountains. Hikers who get lost, climbers who fall, skiers who go out of bounds. Whatever needs finding, we find it. And you started doing that after your wife died? No, I was already doing it, but it became more important afterward. I needed to feel like I was saving something, even if I couldn't save her. He paused, surprised by his own honesty. He didn't usually talk about this. My son, Noah, he's 8 now. He still has nightmares about his mom. Still wakes up screaming sometimes. I can't fix that. Can't make the fear go away. But at least when I'm out on a call, I can bring somebody else home to their family. It helps. A little. Lena's expression softened. You're a single dad. Yeah, that must be hard. Most days it's impossible. Ethan smiled despite himself. But he's a good kid. Smart, kind, scared of everything, but trying so hard to be brave. He deserves better than what life gave him. He deserves a father who shows up, Lena said quietly. Sounds like he's got that. They sat in silence for a moment, the weight of shared loss settling between them like a familiar presence. Outside, the snow was falling harder now, coating the street in a thin layer of white. The cafe had gotten quieter. The college kids had left. The elderly couple was paying their bill. I'm sorry I cried when you walked in, Lena said. That wasn't fair to you. You don't need to apologize. Yes, I do. You didn't deserve to walk into that. She looked down at her hands. I've been on a lot of bad dates since the accident. Guys who can't look me in the eye. Guys who spend the whole time asking invasive questions about my disability. Guys who leave before dessert and ghost me afterward. I thought I'd gotten used to it, but apparently not. When Diane said you'd understand, I actually let myself hope this might be different. And then you walked in and I realized I'd been lied to again, and I just broke. Ethan leaned forward. What if I told you this is different? How could it be? Because I'm still here. He gestured around the nearly empty cafe. We've been talking for almost an hour, Lena, about hard things, real things. And I haven't run, haven't made excuses, haven't treated you like you're fragile or inspirational or anything other than a person who's been through hell and came out the other side. So yeah, I'd say that makes this pretty different from whatever else you've experienced. She searched his face again, that same careful scrutiny from earlier. Why did you stay? Really? Honestly? I don't know. Instinct, maybe. I'm used to running toward disasters instead of away from them, and you looked like someone who needed help even if you were telling me to leave. He paused. Plus, I figured anyone who could make my nosy sister shut up about setting me up for even a week was probably worth meeting. Lena laughed. Actually laughed. A real sound that seemed to surprise her as much as it surprised him. Sarah's been that bad? You have no idea. She calls me every Sunday with a new prospect, her yoga instructor, her dentist, some random woman she met at the grocery store who happened to mention she was single. It's exhausting. Diane's the same way. She works at the rehab center with me, and she's made it her personal mission to fix my love life. Last month she tried to set me up with her cousin who doesn't mind wheelchairs. I told her I'd rather die alone. And yet, here you are. Here I am. Lena shook her head. I must be crazy. Or desperate for your friend to leave you alone. That too. The barista started stacking chairs on tables, a not-so-subtle hint that closing time was approaching. Ethan checked his phone. It was almost 9 o'clock. He'd promised his neighbor he'd be home by 9:30 to relieve her from watching Noah. I should probably go, he said reluctantly. My son's with a sitter. Right, of course. Lena's expression shuddered slightly, like she was preparing for him to say this had been interesting but he wouldn't be calling. Instead, Ethan pulled out his phone. Can I have your number? She blinked. What? Your number, so I can text you. Maybe we could do this again sometime, somewhere that's not closing and doesn't serve terrible coffee. You want to see me again? Why wouldn't I? Because this was a disaster. Lena. Ethan waited until she looked at him. The worst first impression would have been if I'd left when you asked me to, but I didn't. We talked instead. We were honest with each other. We found out we have more in common than either of us expected. That's not a disaster. That's actually kind of rare. She stared at him for a long moment. Then slowly she pulled out her own phone and recited her number. Ethan typed it in and sent her a quick text, just his name so she'd have his contact information too. There, he said. Now you can decide if you want to answer when I text you tomorrow. Tomorrow? I figure waiting 3 days is a stupid rule invented by people who play games. I don't play games. If I like someone, I tell them. He stood up and reached for his wallet, pulling out enough cash to cover both coffees and a generous tip for the barista who'd witnessed their entire conversation. So yeah, I'm going to text you tomorrow and ask if you want to meet again. And you can say yes, or you can say no. And either way, I'll respect whatever you decide. Lena looked up at him, something vulnerable flickering across her face. What if I say yes and then change my mind? Then you change your mind. People are allowed to do that. What if I'm too broken for this? Ethan crouched down beside her wheelchair so they were at eye level. The cafe was empty now except for the barista, who was very deliberately not watching them. Lena, he said quietly, I've spent 3 years raising a traumatized 8-year-old who barely remembers his mother. I work a job where I see people at their absolute worst, injured, dying, terrified. I know what broken looks like, and you're not it. You're someone who survived something terrible and built a life anyway. That's not broken. That's strong as hell. Tears welled in her eyes again, but this time they looked different, softer, less like pain and more like relief. Okay, she whispered. Okay, I can text you? Okay, you can text me. Ethan smiled and stood up. Good, because I was going to anyway, but it's nice to have permission. She laughed again, wiping at her eyes. You're kind of pushy, you know that? I'm a rescue medic and a single dad. Pushy is part of the job description. He grabbed his jacket from the back of his chair. Get home safe, Lena, and check your phone tomorrow. I will. He started toward the door, then stopped and turned back. Hey, Lena? Yeah? For what it's worth, I'm glad Diane lied. If she'd told you the truth about me, you might not have shown up, and then I would have missed meeting one of the strongest people I've ever had coffee with." Before she could respond, he pushed through the door and out into the snowy night. Ethan's truck was covered in a thin layer of white by the time he reached it. He brushed off the windshield with his sleeve and climbed inside, his breath fogging in the cold air. The engine turned over with a reluctant growl, and he sat there for a moment, letting it warm up. Through the cafe window, he could see Lena still sitting at their table. She was looking down at her phone, and even from this distance, he could see the small smile on her face. His own phone buzzed, a text from Sarah. "So? How did it go? Did you like her? Is she nice? Are you going to see her again? Tell me everything." Ethan typed back, "It was fine. Going to see her again. Stop meddling in my life. Fine? That's all you're giving me? You're the worst brother ever. Love you too, Sarah." He put the truck in gear and headed for home, his mind replaying the entire evening. The way Lena's face had crumpled when he walked in, the fear in her voice when she'd begged him to leave, the gradual softening as they'd talked, as she'd realized he wasn't going to run or pity her or treat her like some kind of project. She thought she was too broken for this, for dating, for love, for a future that looked anything like the one she'd planned before a drunk driver rewrote everything. But Ethan knew better. He'd seen real brokenness, people who gave up, who let tragedy consume them completely, who stopped fighting for anything better. Lena wasn't that. She'd taken her grief and turned it into purpose. She helped other people survive their own traumas. She'd agreed to a blind date even though she was terrified, which meant some part of her still believed in possibility. That wasn't broken. That was brave. The mountain road home was slick with fresh snow, and Ethan drove carefully, his headlights cutting through the darkness. These roads had taken Michelle from him. Every time he drove them, he thought about that night, about the call he'd gotten from the sheriff, about the way Noah had looked at him when he'd tried to explain that Mommy wasn't coming home. 3 years. 3 years of nightmares and panic attacks, and learning how to be both parents at once. 3 years of watching his son fight through trauma that no child should have to carry. 3 years of telling himself he was fine, that he didn't need anyone, that Noah was enough. But sitting across from Lena tonight, talking about loss and survival and building new futures from broken pieces, that had felt like something he didn't even know he was missing. Connection, understanding, the specific kind of recognition that only came from meeting someone who'd walked through their own fire and knew what the scars felt like. Maybe Sarah had been right to push him. Maybe Diane had been right to lie. Or maybe some things were just meant to happen, even when they started with the worst first impression imaginable. He pulled into his driveway at 9:40. The house was dark except for the porch light and the faint glow from Noah's nightlight upstairs. Mrs. Chen, his neighbor, opened the door before he'd even reached the porch. "How was it?" she asked, her eyes bright with curiosity. She was 72 and had been watching Noah since Michelle died, refusing to accept payment because, as she put it, that's what neighbors do. "Complicated," Ethan said honestly. "Good complicated or bad complicated?" "I'm not sure yet. How was he?" "Perfect, as always. He did his homework, ate his dinner, brushed his teeth without being asked. That boy is an angel." Mrs. Chen grabbed her coat from the hook by the door. "He asked if you were on a date." Ethan's stomach tightened. "What did you tell him?" "The truth, that you were meeting a friend. He seemed okay with it." She patted his arm. "Don't look so worried. Children are more resilient than we give them credit for." "Maybe, but he's already lost so much." "Which is exactly why he needs to see you building something new. Showing him that life goes on even after loss. That's not betraying his mother. That's teaching him how to survive." Mrs. Chen pulled on her gloves. "Now, was she nice?" "Very. Are you going to see her again?" "I hope so." "Good." Mrs. Chen smiled. "It's about time, Ethan. Michelle would want you to be happy." She left before he could respond, which was probably for the best. Ethan locked the door behind her and climbed the stairs to Noah's room. His son was asleep, curled on his side with his favorite stuffed bear tucked under one arm. The nightlight cast soft shadows across his face, making him look even younger than 8. Peaceful, for once. No nightmares tonight, at least not yet. Ethan sat on the edge of the bed and brushed Noah's hair back from his forehead. The boy stirred but didn't wake. "I met someone tonight," Ethan whispered. "Someone who understands what it's like when everything falls apart. I don't know if it'll go anywhere, buddy, but I thought you should know. Because if it does, you'll be part of it. And I promise, I'll never bring anyone into your life who doesn't see how amazing you are." Noah's breathing stayed slow and even, safe in sleep, at least for now. Ethan stood and pulled the blanket up higher, tucking it around his son's shoulders. Then he went downstairs to his own room, where he pulled out his phone and stared at Lena's contact information. He could still back out, could text her tomorrow and say this had been nice, but he wasn't ready, could protect himself and Noah from the risk of getting attached to someone new who might eventually leave. But then he remembered the way Lena had looked at him when he'd called her strong, like no one had ever said that to her before, like she'd been waiting her whole life to hear someone see her as more than her disability, more than her tragedy, more than the girl whose dreams died in a car accident. He knew that feeling too. The desperate need to be seen as a whole person, not just a widower, not just a single dad, not just someone to be pitied. So instead of backing out, Ethan typed a message. "Made it home safe. Noah's asleep. Already looking forward to tomorrow. Sleep well, Lena." He hit send before he could second-guess himself. 3 minutes later, his phone buzzed with her response. "I'm glad you stayed tonight. Thank you for not running." Ethan smiled in the darkness of his room and typed back, "I don't run from things that matter. See you soon." Outside, the snow was still falling, covering the mountain town in soft, white silence. Inside, for the first time in 3 years, Ethan Brooks went to sleep thinking about possibility instead of loss. And in a small apartment across town, Lena Hart did the same. Neither of them knew what would come next. Whether this fragile beginning would grow into something real or fade away like so many other almosts. But for tonight, it was enough to know that someone had stayed. Someone had seen their scars and not looked away. Sometimes, that was how the best things started. Not with perfection, but with the courage to stay when everything told you to run. The next morning arrived with the kind of brightness that only comes after fresh snow. Sunlight streamed through Ethan's bedroom window, and for the first time in months, he woke up before his alarm. He lay there for a moment, staring at the ceiling, his phone on the nightstand beside him, like a question he wasn't sure how to answer. He'd meant what he said last night. He was going to text Lena, but now, in the clear light of morning, doubt crept in around the edges. What if she'd had second thoughts? What if the vulnerability of their conversation felt like too much in retrospect? What if she woke up embarrassed about crying in front of a stranger and decided it was easier to just disappear? His phone buzzed. Ethan grabbed it so fast he nearly dropped it. The message was from Lena. "Good morning. Is it weird that I've been awake since 6 wondering if you were serious about texting me today?" Relief flooded through him so strongly it was almost embarrassing. He typed back, "Not weird at all. I've been awake since 6:30 wondering the same thing about you. So we're both overthinking this, apparently. Want to grab lunch today? There's a diner in town that makes the best burgers you've ever had." 3 dots appeared, then disappeared, appeared again. Ethan held his breath. "I work until 2. Could we do 3? Perfect. I'll pick you up. I can drive myself. Just send me the address." Ethan hesitated, then decided honesty was better than dancing around it. "I know you can drive yourself. I'm offering because I want to, but if you'd rather meet there, that's fine too." The response came faster this time. "You can pick me up, but only because I'm curious what kind of truck a mountain rescue medic drives. You won't be disappointed. See you at 3. He set the phone down and realized he was grinning like an idiot. From down the hall, he heard Noah's door open, followed by small footsteps padding toward the bathroom. Ethan got up and pulled on jeans and a sweatshirt, then headed to the kitchen to start breakfast. By the time Noah appeared, Ethan had scrambled eggs and toast ready. His son climbed onto his chair, his hair sticking up in every direction, his eyes still heavy with sleep. "Morning, buddy," Ethan said, setting a plate in front of him. "Morning." Noah picked up his fork, then paused. "Mrs. Chen said you went to meet a friend last night." Ethan's chest tightened. He sat down across from his son, choosing his words carefully. "I did. Her name is Lena. She's very nice." "Is she your girlfriend?" "No, we just met. We're getting to know each other." Noah pushed his eggs around his plate. Mom used to be your friend first, before she was your wife. The observation hit Ethan like a punch. Noah rarely talked about Michelle anymore, and when he did, it was usually in questions, not statements, not memories he'd assembled himself. That's true, Ethan said quietly. Your mom was my best friend, but that doesn't mean I'm trying to replace her. Nobody could ever do that. I know. Noah took a bite of toast. I just wanted to make sure you knew. I do. And hey, if I keep seeing Lena, you'll get to meet her, but only if you want to. This is your home too, Noah. Your opinion matters. His son looked up at him, those serious brown eyes that looked so much like Michelle's, it sometimes hurt to meet them. Does she make you smile? Yeah, she does. Then it's okay. Noah went back to his breakfast as if he hadn't just given Ethan permission to move forward with his life, as if 8-year-olds made those kinds of decisions every day. Ethan reached across the table and ruffled his son's hair. Thanks, buddy. That means a lot. They finished breakfast in comfortable silence, and then Ethan drove Noah to school, watching until the boy disappeared through the double doors before heading to the fire station for his shift. But his mind wasn't on work. It was on 3 o'clock, and on the woman who'd cried when he walked through the door, but stayed anyway. Ethan pulled up to the address Lena had texted him at exactly 3 o'clock. It was a small apartment complex on the edge of town, newer construction with ramps and wider doorways. Accessibility built in, not added as an afterthought. He texted to let her know he'd arrived, then got out of the truck to wait. She emerged 2 minutes later, navigating the ramp with the kind of casual confidence that came from years of practice. She wore jeans and a green jacket that brought out the color in her eyes, and her hair was down today, curling around her shoulders. So this is the famous truck, she said, looking it over. I'm impressed. It's very rugged. It's a 2015 Ford with 200,000 miles on it and a dent in the back from where I backed into a tree last winter, Ethan said. But it gets me up the mountain when I need it to. Honest, I like that. She rolled closer, and Ethan moved to open the passenger door. I can transfer myself, but I'll need you to fold the wheelchair and put it in the back. Just tell me what to do. She walked him through it, how to lock the wheels, how to fold the frame, how to lift it without pinching his fingers. It took less than a minute, and then she was pulling herself into the passenger seat with the kind of upper body strength that came from doing everything with your arms. Ethan closed her door and climbed into the driver's seat. Comfortable? Very. She buckled her seatbelt. So where's this diner you were bragging about? Frank's, best burgers in 3 counties. Also the only diner in 3 counties, but the point stands. The drive took 15 minutes, winding through town and past the post office, the hardware store, the elementary school where Noah spent his days. Lena watched it all with the kind of attention that suggested she didn't get out much. How long have you lived here? She asked. My whole life. Grew up in this town, left for college, came back when Michelle got pregnant with Noah. She was from here too. We thought it was a good place to raise a kid, small, safe, everyone knows everyone. He paused. Turns out safe is relative. Isn't it always? Lena's voice was soft. I grew up in Denver. Big city, lots of traffic, pools everywhere. After the accident, I moved here because the rehab center offered me a job and I needed to get away from everything that reminded me of who I used to be. Turns out you can't actually run from yourself. But the mountains are nice anyway. Ethan pulled into Frank's parking lot. The diner was a relic from the 1950s, all chrome and red vinyl, with a neon sign that had been flickering for as long as Ethan could remember. He got Lena's wheelchair from the back and held it steady while she transferred, then followed her up the ramp to the entrance. Inside, the place smelled like grease and coffee and pie. A handful of regulars sat at the counter, and a few booths were occupied by families and couples. Frank himself stood behind the grill, a mountain of a man with a gray beard and a stained apron. Ethan Brooks, he called out. Haven't seen you in here for weeks. Thought maybe you'd found better food somewhere. You know there's no better food, Frank. I've just been busy. I can see that. Frank's eyes slid to Lena, and his expression shifted into something approving. Well, don't just stand there. Grab a booth. I'll bring you the usual. They settled into a booth by the window, and Lena looked around with obvious appreciation. This place is perfect. It's not fancy. Fancy is overrated. This feels real. She picked up the menu even though Frank had already decided what they were eating. So, what's the usual? Cheeseburger, extra pickles, fries, and a chocolate shake. If you don't like it, you can order something else. But I'm telling you, you won't want to. That confident, huh? I've been eating here since I was 10, trust me. Lena set the menu down and folded her hands on the table. Okay, I'll trust you. The words hung in the air between them, heavier than they should have been, because they both knew she wasn't just talking about burgers. Frank brought their food 20 minutes later, 2 massive burgers that barely fit on the plates, fries piled high, and shakes so thick the straws stood up straight. Lena's eyes widened. You weren't kidding. I never kid about food. Ethan picked up his burger. Fair warning, this is not a polite eating situation. You're going to make a mess. Good. I hate polite eating. They ate in comfortable silence for a few minutes, and Ethan watched as Lena's initial skepticism transformed into genuine enjoyment. She took a bite of her burger, closed her eyes, and made a sound that was almost indecent. Okay, she said, opening her eyes. You were right. This is incredible. Told you. Do you bring all your dates here? You're the first date I've had in 3 years, so yes, technically, I bring all my dates here. Lena smiled, but there was something uncertain in her expression. Can I ask you something? Anything. Why me? And don't say it's because Sarah set us up. You could have walked away last night. You could have texted this morning and said it was nice but not worth pursuing, but you didn't. So why? Ethan set his burger down and wiped his hands on a napkin, taking a moment to gather his thoughts. Honestly? Because you were real. Everything about last night was messy and awkward and nothing like what either of us expected. But you didn't try to hide what you were feeling. You didn't pretend to be okay when you weren't. And when we talked, you told me the truth about your life, the hard parts, the parts most people try to gloss over. That matters to me. Because you're tired of people not being real with you? Because I spend every day managing other people's expectations of how I should be handling grief. Everyone wants me to be okay, to have moved on, to be grateful for what I have instead of sad about what I lost. And I'm so damn tired of pretending that I'm fine when most days I'm just trying to hold it together for my son. He met her eyes. But last night, with you, I didn't have to pretend. You understood, and that felt like something worth pursuing. Lena was quiet for a moment, her expression unreadable. Then she reached across the table and placed her hand over his. Her fingers were warm from holding her shake. I get it, she said. The performance. I do it too. At work, everyone sees me as this inspiration, the therapist who overcame her own disability to help others. They think I've got it all figured out. But most nights I go home and wonder who I'd be if the accident had never happened. If I'd made the Olympic team. If my body still did what I asked it to. She squeezed his hand. So yeah, I understand not wanting to pretend anymore. They sat like that for a moment, hands linked across the table, surrounded by the noise of the diner, but existing in their own quiet space. Then Frank walked by and cleared his throat loudly. You two need anything else? Or can I start closing down this romantic moment so other people can eat? Ethan pulled his hand back, laughing. We're good, Frank, thanks. Uh-huh. Just remember, I've known you since you were a kid, Ethan Brooks. You bring this lovely lady back here, you hear me? Yes, sir. Frank wandered off, muttering about young people and public displays of affection, and Lena was laughing so hard she had tears in her eyes. I like him, she said. Everyone does. He's been feeding this town for 40 years. Probably knows more secrets than the priest. They finished their meal, trading stories about their work. Lena told him about a patient she'd been working with, a teenager who'd been paralyzed in a diving accident and was struggling to see any kind of future. Ethan told her about a rescue from last month, a hiker who'd fallen 30 feet and somehow walked away with just a broken arm. Do you ever get scared? Lena asked. Going out on those calls? Every time. But that's the job. You go anyway. That's brave. No, it's necessary. Brave would be doing it when you had a choice. He pushed his empty plate aside. What you do, helping people rebuild their lives after trauma. That's brave. You could have chosen any career after the accident, but you chose to go back into the world that hurt you and help other people survive it. I chose it because I didn't know what else to do, Lena said quietly. Physical therapy was the only thing that made sense. I'd spent so much time in rehab myself that it felt familiar, safe even. But you're good at it. I am. Mostly because I know what my patients are going through. I can tell them the truth, that it's going to be hard, that some days they'll want to quit, that grief doesn't follow a timeline, but also that they can survive it, that there's life on the other side, even if it looks different than what they imagined. Ethan thought about Noah, about the nightmares that still woke him screaming, about the way his son flinched every time a car drove too fast past their house. Do you think kids can really recover from trauma, or does it just change them forever? Lena's expression softened with understanding. It changes them. But change isn't the same as broken. Your son will carry what happened to his mother for the rest of his life. But that doesn't mean he can't also be happy, healthy, whole. It just means his wholeness will include his scars. I want to believe that. Then believe it. And in the meantime, keep showing up for him the way you are. That's what matters most. Not whether you can fix the pain, but whether you stay through it. The words settled into Ethan's chest like a promise. He'd been so focused on trying to make Noah's fear go away that he'd lost sight of the fact that maybe the goal wasn't to erase the trauma. Maybe it was just to prove that love was stronger than loss. Thank you, he said. For what? For saying that. I needed to hear it. Lena smiled. Anytime. They left Frank's as the sun was starting to dip toward the mountains, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Ethan helped Lena back into the truck, and this time she let him, not because she needed the help, but because she was starting to trust that his assistance wasn't pity. On the drive back to her apartment, Lena was quieter, staring out the window at the passing scenery. Ethan let the silence settle, comfortable enough now not to fill it with unnecessary words. Can I tell you something? She said finally. Of course. I almost canceled this morning. I woke up convinced that last night was a fluke, that you'd only been nice because you felt sorry for me, and that in the daylight you'd realize you didn't actually want to deal with all my baggage. She turned to look at him. But then you texted, and you sounded so normal. Like this wasn't a big deal. Like having lunch with me was just something you wanted to do. It was something I wanted to do. I know that now, but this morning I didn't. This morning I was sure you were going to cancel. She paused. I've gotten really good at expecting the worst. It's a defense mechanism. If I assume everyone's going to leave, then I'm never disappointed when they do. Ethan pulled up to her apartment complex and put the truck in park. He turned to face her fully. Lena, I'm not going to promise I'll never hurt you or disappoint you. People mess up. It's part of being human. But I can promise that I'm not going anywhere just because things are complicated. I've got an 8-year-old with PTSD and a job that sends me into the mountains at 3 in the morning. My life is nothing but complicated. Yours doesn't scare me. She looked at him for a long moment, her eyes searching his face for any sign of doubt. Whatever she found must have satisfied her, because she nodded slowly. Okay. 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 I'll try to stop expecting you to disappear. She smiled. No promises, but I'll try. That's all I'm asking. He got out and retrieved her wheelchair, holding it steady while she transferred. So when can I see you again? Are you always this direct? I told you I don't play games. If I want to see someone, I ask. Lena laughed. I have a full schedule this week, but I'm free Saturday. There's a farmer's market in town. We could walk around, get some coffee that's actually good, maybe some fresh bread. Sounds perfect. What time should I pick you up? 10. And Ethan? Yeah? Thank you for today, for the burger, for the conversation, for all of it. Thank you for giving me a chance after I ruined your blind date expectations. You didn't ruin them. You just completely upended them. There's a difference. He watched as she made her way up the ramp to her building, and just before she went inside, she turned back and waved. He waved back, then climbed into his truck and sat there for a moment, processing everything that had just happened. 2 dates in 2 days. Actual conversation. Laughter. Connection. Things he'd convinced himself he didn't need anymore. His phone rang. Sarah, of course. He answered. What do you want? Details. I want details. Diane called me and said Lena texted her that you two had lunch today. How did it go? Are you seeing her again? Is she amazing? It was fine. Yes, and yes. Ethan Brooks, you give me more than that right now or I'm coming over there, he sighed. It was really good, Sarah. She's smart and funny and honest. We're seeing each other Saturday. Are you happy now? His sister squealed so loudly he had to hold the phone away from his ear. I knew it! I knew you two would be perfect together. Diane owes me $20. You bet on us? Of course we did. She said you'd bail after the first date. I said you'd at least make it to 3. So don't let me down, little brother. I'm hanging up now. Wait, does Noah know? Ethan's smile faded slightly. I told him I met someone. He took it better than I expected. Of course he did. That kid's resilient. He gets it from his dad. Sarah's voice softened. I'm proud of you, Ethan. I know this isn't easy, but you deserve to be happy. Michelle would want that. I know. Do you? Because you've spent 3 years punishing yourself for surviving when she didn't. And maybe it's time to forgive yourself and actually live again. The words hit harder than they should have. I'll think about it. Good. Now go home to your son and stop overthinking everything. I love you. Love you too. He hung up and drove home through the darkening streets, his mind full of Lena's laugh, the warmth of her hand on his, the way she'd looked at him when he'd said her baggage didn't scare him. Maybe Sarah was right. Maybe it was time to stop just surviving and start actually living. The week passed in a blur of texts and work and Noah's homework. Ethan and Lena messaged each other every day, sometimes long conversations about their childhoods and their losses, sometimes just quick check-ins about how their days were going. It felt natural, easy, like something that had been missing from his life without him even realizing it. On Thursday night, Noah asked about her again. They were sitting at the dinner table eating spaghetti that Ethan had definitely overcooked. Noah twirled noodles around his fork and said, Are you going to see your friend again? Yeah, buddy. On Saturday. We're going to the farmer's market. Can I come? Ethan's chest tightened. You want to meet her? You said I could, if I wanted to. Noah looked up at him with those serious eyes. I want to. Okay, let me ask her if that's all right. He texted Lena that night. Noah asked if he could come to the farmer's market on Saturday. I told him I'd check with you first. No pressure either way, her response came quickly. I'd love to meet him, but only if you think he's ready. He asked to come. I think that means he's ready. Then bring him. I promise I'll be on my best behavior. Saturday morning arrived bright and clear. Ethan woke Noah early and helped him pick out clothes, which turned into a whole production because suddenly his 8-year-old cared about what he wore. Does this shirt look okay? Noah asked, holding up a blue t-shirt with a dinosaur on it. It looks great. What about this one? He held up a red one. Also great. Buddy, she's not going to care what shirt you wear. But what if she does? Ethan knelt down so they were eye level. Noah, Lena is a kind person. She's going to like you because of who you are, not what you're wearing. Okay? Okay? But Noah still chose the blue shirt, and he checked his reflection 3 times before they left. They picked up Lena at 10, and Ethan's heart did something complicated in his chest when he saw her waiting outside her building. She wore a yellow sundress and a denim jacket, and she'd pulled her hair back into a braid. When she spotted the truck, she smiled and waved. Noah was quiet in the back seat as Ethan loaded the wheelchair and helped Lena into the passenger seat. But when she turned around to look at him, she didn't treat him like a child. She just smiled and said, You must be Noah. Your dad's told me a lot about you. He told me about you too, Noah said shyly. All good things, I hope. He said you're really strong. Lena's expression flickered with something that might have been surprise. Did he? Yeah, he said, you help people who got hurt learn how to be okay again. I try. It's hard work, but it's important. She paused. Your dad helps people too. Did you know that? Noah nodded. He rescues them in the mountains. That's really brave. You must be proud of him. I am. Noah's voice was quiet, but there was certainty in it. The farmer's market was crowded, filled with families and couples browsing stalls of fresh produce, baked goods, handmade crafts. Ethan walked beside Lena, and Noah stayed close, his hand occasionally brushing against Ethan's arm, like he needed the reassurance that his dad was still there. They stopped at a booth selling fresh bread, and Lena bought a loaf of sourdough. At another stall, Noah found honey sticks in different flavors, and Ethan bought him one of each kind. They wandered through the market, talking and laughing, and slowly Noah started to relax. At one point, they stopped near a small stage where a local band was playing folk music. Noah watched the musicians with fascination, and Lena said, "Do you like music?" "I used to play piano," Noah said, "but I stopped after Mom died." The admission hung in the air, stark and honest. Ethan's throat tightened, but Lena didn't flinch. "That makes sense," she said gently. "Sometimes when we lose someone, the things we used to love remind us too much of what we lost. It's okay to take a break." "Do you think I could start again, someday?" "I think you can do anything you want, whenever you're ready. And if you're never ready, that's okay too." Noah thought about this, then nodded. He seemed satisfied with her answer in a way that he never seemed satisfied when Ethan said similar things. They found a bench near the stage and sat down to eat their honey sticks and listen to the music. Noah sat between them, and at one point he leaned against Lena's wheelchair like it was the most natural thing in the world. Ethan caught her eye over Noah's head, and she smiled. A soft, genuine smile that said she understood exactly how significant this moment was. After the market, they got ice cream and walked through the small park nearby. Noah ran ahead to look at the ducks in the pond, and Lena said quietly, "He's a special kid." "He is. He misses his mom. Every day. But he's lucky to have you." She reached over and squeezed his hand. "You're doing a good job, Ethan. I can see it in how safe he feels with you." "Some days I'm not sure that's enough." "It's more than enough, trust me." They watched Noah throw breadcrumbs to the ducks. His face lit up with simple joy. And Ethan thought maybe Lena was right. Maybe showing up and staying present was enough. Maybe love didn't require perfection, just commitment. When they dropped Lena off that afternoon, Noah said goodbye with a small wave. And as they drove home, he said, "I like her, Dad." "Yeah?" "Yeah. She's nice. And she didn't treat me like a baby." "She wouldn't. That's not who she is." Noah was quiet for a moment. Then, "Do you think Mom would be okay with her?" The question nearly broke Ethan's heart. "I think your mom would want us to be happy. And if Lena makes us happy, then yes, I think she'd be okay with it." "Okay." Noah stared out the window. "I'm happy today." "Me too, buddy. Me but too." That night, after Noah was asleep, Ethan texted Lena. "Thank you for today. Noah hasn't stopped talking about you. He's an amazing kid. You're raising him right. I'm trying. It means a lot that he liked you. I liked him too. And his dad's not bad either." Ethan smiled in the darkness of his room. "So when can I see you again?" "Eager, aren't we?" "I told you, I don't play games." "Good, neither do I. How about dinner this week?" "I'll cook." "You sure?" "I can bring something." Ethan, "Let me cook for you. I promise I won't poison you." "All right. When? Wednesday? 7? I'll be there." He set his phone down and stared at the ceiling, his mind racing. This was happening, actually happening. He was falling for someone again. Someone who understood his life, who accepted his son, who didn't ask him to be anything other than exactly who he was. It terrified him. But it also felt like the first real breath he'd taken in 3 years. And maybe that was worth the fear. Wednesday came faster than Ethan expected. He dropped Noah off at Sarah's house with strict instructions about bedtime and homework, endured his sister's knowing smirk and whispered, "Have fun tonight," and drove to Lena's apartment with a bottle of wine he'd spent 20 minutes choosing at the store. He knocked on her door at exactly 7 o'clock, and when she answered, the smell of garlic and herbs wafted out into the hallway. "Right on time," she said, rolling back to let him in. "I'm impressed." "Medic training. We're pathologically punctual." He handed her the wine. "I wasn't sure what you were making, so I went with red. If that's wrong, I can—" "It's perfect. Come in." Her apartment was small but thoughtfully arranged. The furniture was lower than standard, the counters in the kitchen modified for wheelchair access. Bookshelves lined one wall, filled with medical texts and novels and framed photos. A large window looked out over the mountains, and the last light of day painted the peaks in shades of purple and gold. "This is nice," Ethan said, looking around. Really nice. It took me a year to find a place that worked. Most landlords see the wheelchair and suddenly remember they're not actually renting anymore. Lena rolled toward the kitchen. But this building was designed with accessibility in mind. The owner's daughter uses a chair, so he gets it. That makes a difference. More than you'd think. She pulled a cutting board toward her and started slicing bread. I'm making chicken piccata, roasted vegetables, and garlic bread. I hope you're hungry. Starving. Can I help? You can open that wine and pour us each a glass. Then you can sit down and tell me about your day. Ethan found the wine opener in a drawer she pointed to and got to work on the bottle. My day was mostly paperwork and training exercises. We've got a new guy on the team who thinks he's invincible because he climbed Mount Rainier once. I spent 3 hours teaching him why arrogance gets you killed in the mountains. Did he listen? Eventually, after I made him run the rappelling course 6 times in a row, Ethan poured 2 glasses and handed one to Lena. What about you? I had a breakthrough with my patient. The teenager I told you about, the one who was paralyzed in a diving accident. He's been so angry, so resistant to everything. Today, he finally let himself cry. Really cry. Not just the silent tears he's been hiding. And after, he asked me how I learned to accept what happened to me. What did you tell him? Lena took a sip of wine, her expression thoughtful. I told him I didn't accept it. Not really. I just learned to carry it. There's a difference. Acceptance implies you're okay with what happened. I'm not okay with it. I'll never be okay with it. But I've learned to build a life that includes the loss instead of being defined by it. Ethan leaned against the counter, watching her move through the kitchen with practiced efficiency. That's honest. It's the only thing that helps. If I told him it gets easier, or that time heals all wounds, or any of those other empty platitudes people throw around, he would have stopped trusting me. Grief doesn't follow a neat timeline. It just becomes part of who you are. Does it get lighter, at least, the weight of it? Some days. Other days, it's just as heavy as it was in the beginning. She looked up at him. You know that, though. You're living it, too. Ethan nodded slowly. 3 years since Michelle died, and there were still mornings when he woke up forgetting she was gone. Still moments when he turned to tell her something before remembering she wasn't there. The weight hadn't gotten lighter. He'd just gotten stronger at carrying it. Noah asked me the other day if I thought his mom would be mad at me for meeting you, he said quietly. Lena's hand stilled on the cutting board. What did you tell him? That she'd want us to be happy. That love doesn't run out just because someone dies. That there's room in our hearts for both the people we've lost and the people we're finding. He paused. I'm not sure I believed it when I said it, but I wanted him to believe it. Do you believe it now? Ethan met her eyes across the kitchen. I'm starting to. Something shifted in the air between them, a deepening of the connection that had been building since that first disastrous night at the cafe. Lena held his gaze for a moment longer, then turned back to the stove. Dinner's almost ready. Can you grab the plates from that cabinet? They ate at her small dining table, the food as good as the smell had promised. Lena had made everything from scratch, and Ethan found himself wondering when she'd had time to learn to cook like this. When she'd decided that losing the use of her legs didn't mean losing the ability to create something beautiful. This is incredible, he said, after his third bite. Where did you learn to cook? Rehab, actually. They had a life skills program that taught us how to do everyday tasks from a wheelchair. Cooking was part of it. I got really into it because it was one of the few things that made me feel normal, like I was still capable of taking care of myself. You're more than capable. I know that now, but in the beginning, I felt so helpless. I needed other people for everything, bathing, dressing, getting in and out of bed. I hated it. Hated being dependent, hated being pitied, hated that my entire identity had become the girl who used to swim. She took a sip of wine. Cooking gave me back some control. It was something I could do well, something I could be proud of. So I practiced until I got good at it. You didn't just get good, you got great. Years of practice, she smiled. Plus I had a lot of angry energy to work through. Kneading bread dough is surprisingly therapeutic. They talked through dinner, the conversation flowing easily from topic to topic. Lena told him about her family, her parents who'd struggled to accept her disability at first, who'd wanted her to move back home so they could take care of her. who'd eventually learned to respect her independence. Ethan told her about his own family, about Sarah's relentless matchmaking, and his parents who'd retired to Arizona and called every Sunday to check on Noah. After dinner, they moved to the couch with fresh glasses of wine. Lena transferred from her wheelchair with the same casual grace she brought to everything, and Ethan sat beside her, close enough that their shoulders almost touched. "Can I ask you something?" Lena said. "Always." "What scares you most about this? About us?" The question caught him off guard. He'd expected her to ask about his intentions, or about Noah, or about what he was looking for, not about his fears. "Honestly?" He turned to look at her. "I'm terrified that I'm going to mess this up, that I'm going to hurt you without meaning to, or that I'm going to realize I'm not actually ready for this and break your heart. Or worse, that you're going to realize I come with too much baggage and decide it's not worth it." "Ethan, we both come with baggage. That's not a deal breaker. That's just life." "I know, but my baggage includes a traumatized 8-year-old who still wakes up screaming sometimes. A job that could get me killed on any given day. A dead wife whose memory I'm never going to stop honoring. That's a lot to ask someone to take on." Lena reached over and took his hand. "Do you want to know what scares me?" "Yeah." "What?" "I'm terrified that you're only here because you feel sorry for me. That this whole thing is just you being a good guy who doesn't know how to walk away from someone who needs help. I'm scared that one day you're going to wake up and realize you don't actually want to deal with the reality of dating someone in a wheelchair, the stairs, the accessibility issues, the physical limitations. And I'm absolutely terrified that I'm going to let myself fall for you and then watch you leave like everyone else has." Her voice cracked on the last word, and Ethan saw tears gathering in her eyes. He shifted closer, cupping her face with his free hand. "Lena, listen to me. I'm not here out of pity. I'm here because you're the first person in 3 years who's made me want to be here. Because when I'm with you, I don't feel like I'm drowning anymore. Because you understand things about loss and survival that most people never will, and that matters to me." He brushed his thumb across her cheek. "Your wheelchair isn't something I'm tolerating. It's just part of who you are. And who you are is someone I really want to keep getting to know." "You say that now, but—" "I say that now, and I'll say it tomorrow, and the day after that. I'm not going anywhere, Lena. Not unless you ask me to." She stared at him for a long moment, searching his face for any hint of doubt. Then she leaned forward and kissed him. It was soft at first, tentative, like she was testing whether this was really okay. But when Ethan kissed her back, when he pulled her closer and let himself get lost in the taste of wine on her lips and the smell of her shampoo, the tentative quality disappeared. The kiss deepened, became something urgent and real and full of all the things they'd been too afraid to say out loud. When they finally pulled apart, both of them were breathing hard. Lena's eyes were bright, her cheeks flushed. "I've wanted to do that since the farmer's market," she whispered. "Why didn't you?" "Because Noah was there, and because I was scared." "Are you still scared?" "Terrified, but I'm doing it anyway." Ethan smiled and kissed her again, slower this time, savoring it. When they broke apart, he rested his forehead against hers. "I should probably go soon. I need to pick up Noah from Sarah's, and if I stay much longer, I'm not going to want to leave." "One more minute," Lena said. "Just give me one more minute." So they sat there, wrapped in each other, stealing a few more moments before the real world intruded. And when Ethan finally stood to leave, when he helped Lena back into her wheelchair and pulled on his jacket, he felt something he hadn't felt in years. Hope. Real tangible hope that maybe his life wasn't over, that maybe there was room for love again, even with all the scars he carried. At the door, Lena caught his hand. "Text me when you get home safe?" "Always." He kissed her one more time, quick and sweet. "And Lena?" "Yeah?" "Thank you for tonight, for the dinner, for the honesty, for the kiss. All of it. Thank you for staying, again." He drove to Sarah's house with a smile he couldn't quite erase, and when his sister opened the door, she took one look at his face and started squealing. "Oh my gosh, something happened. What happened? Did you kiss her? You kissed her. I can tell by your face." "Sarah, stop." "I will not stop. This is amazing. My baby brother is falling in love. I'm not—" But he couldn't finish the sentence. Because maybe he was. Maybe he was falling in love with a woman who'd cried when he walked through the door but stayed anyway. Who cooked him dinner and asked him about his fears and kissed him like he was worth the risk. Just go get Noah, he said, shaking his head, and stop meddling in my life. Never. Meddling is what big sisters do best. But she went to get Noah, and 5 minutes later, Ethan was driving home with his son chattering about his evening with Aunt Sarah. She let me stay up late and watch a movie, Noah said, and she made popcorn with extra butter. Of course she did. Did you have fun with Lena? Ethan glanced in the rearview mirror. Yeah, buddy, I did. Are you going to see her again? I hope so. Is that okay with you? Noah was quiet for a moment, looking out the window at the dark streets passing by. I think Mom would like her. The words hit Ethan square in the chest. Why do you say that? Because Lena's kind, and she's strong like Mom was, and she makes you smile the way you used to smile before. Noah's voice was small but certain. I think Mom would want you to smile again. Ethan had to pull over because his vision was blurring with tears. He put the truck in park and turned around to look at his son. Come here, buddy. Noah unbuckled and climbed into the front seat, and Ethan pulled him into a hug that felt like it might break both of them open. His son's small body fit perfectly against his chest, and Ethan buried his face in Noah's hair and let himself cry. I love you so much, he said. You know that, right? I know, Dad. And nothing, not Lena, not anyone, is ever going to change how much I love you. You're my first priority, always. I know that too. Noah pulled back and looked up at him with those serious brown eyes. But you can love other people too. It's okay. Love doesn't run out. Ethan's own words, given back to him by his 8-year-old son. He laughed through his tears and hugged Noah again. When did you get so smart? I've always been smart. You just don't listen. Fair point. They sat there for another moment, father and son, processing the weight of everything that was changing. Then Noah climbed back into his seat, buckled up, and said, Can we get ice cream on the way home? It's 9:30 at night. So? So you're supposed to be in bed soon. But I was good at Aunt Sarah's, and you said I could have ice cream when I'm good. Ethan sighed, but he was smiling. Fine, but just this once. And you can't tell Sarah, or she'll think she can bribe you with late-night snacks every time. Deal. They stopped at the gas station that sold pints of ice cream, and Noah chose chocolate chip while Ethan grabbed coffee flavor for himself. They ate it in the truck in the parking lot, the radio playing softly, the night warm around them. Dad? Noah said between bites. Yeah, buddy? Do you think Lena would want to come to my school concert next month? It's just a little thing, but Mrs. Patterson said we could invite people. Ethan's throat tightened. You want her to come? If she's not busy, I think she'd like it. We're doing songs about springtime, and there's one about mountains. I'll ask her. But Noah, I need you to understand something. Lena and I are still figuring things out. We really like each other, but we're taking things slow. So if she comes to your concert, it's because she wants to support you, not because she's trying to replace your mom. Okay? I know, Dad. I get it. Noah licked his spoon. But I still want her there. Then I'll ask her. That night, after Noah was asleep, Ethan texted Lena. Made it home. Noah asked if you'd come to his school concert next month. No pressure, but he really wants you there. Her response came quickly. I'd be honored. When is it? April 15th, 7 p.m. at the elementary school. I'll mark my calendar. And Ethan? Yeah? Tonight was perfect. Thank you for being honest about your fears. It means more than you know. Thank you for kissing me. I've been thinking about it since I left. Good. Because I plan to do it again, soon. How soon? Are you free this weekend for you? Always. Then let's do something. Just the two of us this time. I love Noah, but I want some time alone with his dad. Ethan smiled at his phone. Any ideas? How do you feel about hiking? I'm a search and rescue medic. Hiking is basically my job. Then take me somewhere beautiful, somewhere most people don't know about. I want to see the mountains the way you see them. I know just the place. Saturday morning? It's a date. The week crawled by. Ethan went to work, came home to Noah, helped with homework and made dinner, and did all the normal things that filled his days. But underneath it all, there was a current of anticipation that made everything feel lighter. He caught himself smiling at random moments, humming while he cooked, looking forward to the weekend in a way he hadn't in years. Sarah noticed, of course. She called on Thursday night and said, "You sound different." "Different how?" "Happy. You sound happy. It's weird." "Thanks, I think." "I'm serious, Ethan. I haven't heard you like this since before Michelle died. It's good. Really good." She paused. "Diane says Lena's the same way. Apparently she's been floating around the rehab center all week talking about this guy she's seen." "She's been talking about me?" "Don't sound so surprised. You're a catch, little brother, even if you are emotionally stunted and pathologically commitment phobic." "I thought you said I sounded happy." "You do. Doesn't mean you're not also those other things." Sarah's voice softened. "But you're trying. That's what matters. And from what Diane says, Lena's trying too, which is huge for her. She doesn't let people in easily." "Yeah, I've noticed. Just don't screw it up, okay? I really like the idea of you being happy. And Noah likes her, which is basically the gold standard for approval in your life. I'm not going to screw it up." "Good. Because if you do, Diane and I will hunt you down and make your life miserable." "Noted." Saturday morning arrived clear and cold, the kind of spring day where the sun was warm, but the air still had teeth. Ethan packed a backpack with water, snacks, a first aid kit, and a blanket. He picked up Lena at 8, and when she answered the door, she was wearing hiking pants and a fleece jacket, her hair pulled back in a practical braid. "I wasn't sure what to wear," she said. "I haven't been on a real hike since before the accident." "You look perfect. This trail is accessible. It's paved for the first mile, then dirt, but well maintained. I scouted it earlier this week to make sure your chair could handle it." Lena's expression softened. "You scouted it? I told you I'd take you somewhere beautiful. I meant it." They drove for 40 minutes, winding up a mountain road that most tourists never found. The trailhead was empty when they arrived, just a small parking lot and a wooden sign that read Eagle's Rest Trail, 2.5 miles to Overlook. Ethan got Lena's chair from the back and helped her transfer, then shouldered his backpack. "Ready? Ready?" The trail started easy, paved and smooth, cutting through a forest of pine and aspen. Sunlight filtered through the branches, painting patterns on the ground. Birds sang in the canopy, and somewhere in the distance, water rushed over rocks. They moved slowly, Lena navigating the path with confidence while Ethan walked beside her. The air smelled like pine sap and earth, and the higher they climbed, the more the world opened up around them. "This is incredible," Lena said, pausing to look out over the valley below. "I forgot how much I missed this." "The mountains?" "Being in nature. Feeling small in a good way, you know? Like your problems are tiny compared to all this." She gestured at the vast expanse of forest and rock. "I used to hike before the accident. Nothing serious, just day trips. But after, I convinced myself it wasn't possible anymore. That I'd lost access to this part of the world. And now? Now I'm realizing I just needed someone to show me it was still possible." She looked up at him. "Thank you for this. We're not even to the good part yet." They continued up the trail, the pavement giving way to packed dirt as they climbed higher. Ethan had chosen this path specifically because it was wide and well-maintained, without the roots and rocks that would make it impossible for Lena's wheelchair. But it was still a workout, and by the time they reached the overlook, both of them were breathing hard. The view was worth it. The trail opened onto a rocky outcrop that jutted over the valley like a balcony. Below them, the forest stretched for miles, broken only by the silver ribbon of a river cutting through the green. Mountains rose on all sides, their peaks still dusted with snow. The sky was so blue it almost hurt to look at. "Oh," Lena breathed. "Oh, this is—" "I know." They sat there in silence for a long moment, just taking it in. Then Ethan spread the blanket on the rock, and they settled in side by side, sharing water and trail mix while the world spread out below them. "I used to come here with Michelle," Ethan said quietly, "before Noah was born. We'd pack a lunch and spend the whole day just sitting here, talking about our plans, where we'd live, what we'd name our kids, what we wanted our life to look like." He paused. "I haven't been back since she died. Couldn't bring myself to." Lena turned to look at him. "Why bring me here then?" "Because I wanted to. Because this place is too beautiful to stay haunted by grief, And because I think Michelle would have liked you. She would have appreciated how strong you are, how honest. He met her eyes. I wanted to share it with you. Wanted to make new memories here that don't hurt. Are they helping? The new memories? Yeah, they are. Lena leaned her head on his shoulder, and they sat like that for a while, watching clouds drift across the sky. The world felt impossibly vast and impossibly small at the same time, vast enough to hold all their grief, small enough that this moment between them mattered. Can I tell you something? Lena said. Anything. I've been having nightmares lately about the accident. I haven't had them in over a year, but they came back when I started seeing you. Ethan's chest tightened. Because of me? Not because of you, because I'm scared of losing this. Of losing you. My brain keeps reminding me that good things can disappear in an instant. That one moment you're fine, and the next your entire life is different. She lifted her head to look at him. But I'm trying not to let the fear win. Trying to trust that this is worth the risk. It is worth it. We're worth it. I want to believe that. Then believe it. Ethan took her hand, lacing their fingers together. Lena, I can't promise nothing bad will ever happen. I can't guarantee I won't die on a rescue call, or that you won't get hurt again, or that life won't throw something at us we're not prepared for. But I can promise that I'm all in, that I'm not running, that whatever comes, we'll face it together. She searched his face, and he saw the exact moment she decided to trust him. Saw the fear recede and something braver take its place. Okay, she whispered. Together. He kissed her there on the mountain, with the whole world spread out below them and the sun warm on their faces. And for the first time since Michelle died, Ethan felt like he wasn't betraying her memory by moving forward. He was honoring it, proving that love didn't end when someone died. It just made room for new love to grow alongside it. They stayed on the mountain until the sun started to dip toward the western peaks, then made their way back down the trail. The descent was easier, gravity doing most of the work, and they talked the whole way. About Noah's upcoming concert, about Lena's patience, about the life they were tentatively building together. When they reached the truck, Lena said, I don't want this day to end. It doesn't have to. Come back to my place. I'll make dinner. We can watch a movie. You can meet Noah's hermit crab. He has a hermit crab? Long story, but yes. Her name is Princess Sparkles, and she's very judgmental. Lena laughed. How can I say no to that? So they drove back to Ethan's house, and he cooked pasta while Lena sat at the kitchen counter telling him about her own childhood pets. Noah came home from a friend's house and lit up when he saw Lena there, immediately dragging her to his room to show her Princess Sparkles and his rock collection and the drawing he'd made of the mountains. They ate dinner together, the three of them, and it felt so natural that it scared Ethan, this easy domesticity, this sense of family, this feeling that they'd all been waiting for each other without knowing it. After dinner, Noah asked if Lena could help him with his math homework, and she agreed without hesitation. Ethan watched them work together at the kitchen table. Noah's face scrunched in concentration while Lena patiently explained fractions in a way that actually made sense. This was what healing looked like. Not forgetting the past, but making room for a future that included it. When Noah went to bed, Lena and Ethan sat on the couch with mugs of tea, and she said, He's really something special. He is, and he adores you. The feeling's mutual. She set her mug down. Ethan, I need to tell you something. His stomach dropped. Okay. I'm falling for you, hard. And it scares me because I've spent 4 years protecting myself from this exact feeling, but I can't stop it, and I don't think I want to. Relief and joy crashed through him in equal measure. I'm falling for you too. Have been since you cried when I walked into that cafe. That was the worst first impression ever. It was perfect, because it was real. And real is all I've ever wanted. She kissed him then, soft and sweet and full of promise. And when she finally left that night, when Ethan helped her into her car and watched her drive away, he stood in his driveway looking up at the stars and thought about how life could break you and build you at the same time. How loss and love could exist in the same heart. How the worst first impression could lead to the best new beginning. Inside, Noah called out from his room. Dad, can you come here? Ethan went upstairs and found his son sitting up in bed, his stuffed bear clutched to his chest. What's up, buddy? I just wanted to say I'm glad Lena's here. She makes everything feel less scary. Ethan sat on the edge of the bed and brushed Noah's hair back. Yeah, she does. Do you think she'll stay? I don't know. But I'm going to try really hard to make sure she wants to. Good. Noah yawned. Because I think we need her. Ethan thought about that after Noah fell asleep. Thought about it as he got ready for bed himself. Need was a strong word, a vulnerable word. But maybe Noah was right. Maybe they did need her. Not to fix them or save them, but to show them that life after loss could still be full, still be beautiful, still be worth living. And maybe Lena needed them too. Needed to see that her disability wasn't a deal breaker, that she could be loved fully, completely, without reservation or pity. Maybe they were all just broken pieces finding ways to fit together. And maybe that was enough. 3 months passed like water flowing downhill, inevitable and natural. Spring settled into the mountains with wildflowers bursting from the meadows and snow melting into rushing streams. Ethan and Lena fell into a rhythm that felt less like dating and more like building something permanent. She came to dinner twice a week. They took Noah to the park on Saturdays. She helped with homework while Ethan cooked. He learned which curbs in town had the best ramps and which restaurants had accessible bathrooms. She learned that Noah needed his stuffed bear to sleep and that Ethan took his coffee black with exactly 1 sugar. But underneath the easy domesticity, Lena was struggling with something she couldn't name. It showed in small ways at first. The way she'd go quiet when other couples walked past holding hands. The way she'd flinch when strangers stared at her wheelchair. The way she'd pull back slightly when Ethan tried to hold her hand in public, as if she was waiting for him to realize what he'd signed up for and change his mind. It all came to a head on a Tuesday evening in late April. Ethan had taken her to a nice restaurant in the next town over, the kind of place with cloth napkins and wine lists. They'd been seated at a table near the window and everything had been perfect until the couple at the next table started whispering, not quietly enough. Ethan heard fragments. Such a shame. So young. What a saint he must be. He watched Lena's face close off, watched her shoulders tense, watched her retreat into herself the way she had that first night at the cafe. She made it through dinner with forced smiles and one-word answers, but when they got back to her apartment, she didn't invite him in. I'm tired, she said, not meeting his eyes. I'll talk to you tomorrow. Lena, what's wrong? Nothing. I'm just tired. Don't do that. Don't shut me out. She looked up at him then, and her eyes were bright with unshed tears. What do you want me to say, Ethan? That I'm tired of being stared at? That I hate knowing people look at us and think you're doing charity work? That I'm terrified you're going to wake up one day and realize you don't actually want to spend your life dealing with accessibility ramps and strangers' pity? That's not... It is, though. You can say it doesn't matter, but it does. It matters every single day, and I'm so tired of pretending it doesn't hurt. Ethan reached for her, but she rolled back, putting distance between them. Lena, please, let's talk about this. I can't. Not tonight. I just need to be alone. She went inside and closed the door, leaving Ethan standing in the hallway with a chest full of words he didn't get to say. He drove home in silence, his mind racing. He'd known this would be hard, had known that dating someone with a visible disability would come with challenges, but he'd thought his consistency would be enough, that showing up every day would prove he wasn't going anywhere. Apparently it wasn't enough. At home, Noah was already asleep, and Mrs. Chen reported that the evening had been uneventful. Ethan thanked her, locked up, and sat alone in his dark living room wondering how to fix something he didn't know was broken. His phone buzzed. A text from Sarah. Diane called. She's worried about Lena. What happened? I don't know. She shut down after dinner, said she needed space. Did something trigger it? People staring, making comments, the usual. Oh no. Ethan, she's probably spiraling. You need to talk to her. She said she wanted to be alone. She also cried when you first met and begged you to leave. And you stayed anyway. So stay now too. Go back there tomorrow and make her talk to you. Don't let her push you away because she's scared. Ethan stared at the message, then typed back, what if she really does want me to leave her alone? Then she'll tell you that. But my guess? She's testing you, seeing if you'll run when things get hard. Don't run, little brother. She needs you to stay. He didn't sleep much that night. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Lena's face closing off, saw her rolling away from him, saw the fear in her eyes that looked too much like certainty. By the time morning came, he'd made a decision. He dropped Noah at school and drove straight to the rehabilitation center where Lena worked. The receptionist recognized him and pointed toward the therapy gym, where Lena was working with a patient on the parallel bars. Ethan waited until she finished the session, watching as she encouraged a middle-aged man through his exercises with the same patience she'd shown Noah. When the patient left, she turned and saw Ethan standing there. "What are you doing here?" Her voice was guarded. "We need to talk." "I'm working." "Then talk to me on your lunch break." "Please, Lena. You can't just shut down and expect me to disappear." She studied his face for a long moment, then sighed. "Fine. I have 30 minutes. There's a break room down the hall." They went to a small room with a refrigerator, a microwave, and a table that had seen better days. Lena closed the door and turned to face him, her arms crossed defensively. "I'm sorry about last night," she said before he could speak. "I shouldn't have pushed you away like that. You don't need to apologize for having feelings, but you do need to talk to me about them instead of shutting me out." "I know, it's just—" She broke off, her hands twisting in her lap. "It's hard, Ethan, being in public with you, feeling everyone's eyes on us, knowing they're making assumptions about why you're with me." "What assumptions?" "That you're settling, that you're too nice to admit you don't want this, that I'm some kind of pity project or inspiration porn for you to feel good about yourself." Her voice cracked. "And the worst part is, sometimes I wonder if they're right." Ethan felt something hot and angry flare in his chest. He pulled out a chair and sat down so they were at eye level. "Do you really think that little of me? That I'd spend 3 months building a relationship with you just to make myself feel like a good person?" "No, that's not what I meant." "Then what did you mean?" "I meant that I'm scared." The words burst out of her like a dam breaking. "I'm scared that this is too good to be real, that you're too good to be real. I'm scared that one day you're going to realize how much easier your life would be with someone who doesn't come with all my complications, and you're going to leave, just like everyone else has." "I'm not everyone else." "You say that now. But Ethan, you don't understand what it's like. The stares, the comments, the constant awareness that I'm different. The fact that I can't do simple things like walk on the beach with you or dance at a wedding or climb stairs to a restaurant. You think it doesn't matter now, but eventually it will. Eventually you'll get tired of accommodating me." Ethan leaned forward, his voice low and intense. "Lena, listen to me very carefully. I knew what I was signing up for when I asked for your number that first night. I knew you used a wheelchair. I knew there would be accessibility challenges. I knew people would stare and make stupid comments, and I asked you out anyway because none of that matters compared to who you are. But let me finish. You're right that I don't fully understand what it's like to be you. I can't. I'll never know what it feels like to have people look at you and see your wheelchair before they see you. But I do understand what it's like to be defined by loss. To have people look at me and see poor widower before they see Ethan. To feel like my grief is the only interesting thing about me." He reached across the table and took her hands. "But you've never done that. You've never treated me like a tragedy. You've seen me as a whole person. And that's exactly what I do when I look at you. I see Lena, smart, funny, strong, beautiful Lena. The wheelchair is just part of the package. It's not the whole story." Tears were streaming down her face now. "I want to believe you." "Then believe me. Because I'm not going anywhere. Not when people stare. Not when restaurants don't have ramps. Not when things are hard. I'm staying, Lena. The question is whether you're going to let me." She pulled her hands free and covered her face, her shoulders shaking with sobs. Ethan stood and moved around the table, kneeling beside her wheelchair so he could wrap his arms around her. "I'm so tired of being scared," she whispered against his shoulder. "I know, but you don't have to be scared alone anymore. Let me help carry it." They stayed like that for a long time, Lena crying into his shoulder while Ethan held her and murmured reassurances. When she finally pulled back, her face was blotchy and her eyes were red, but she looked lighter somehow, less burdened. "I'm sorry," she said again. "I shouldn't have shut you out." "You're allowed to have bad days. You're allowed to be scared. You're just not allowed to push me away without telling me why. Deal?" She nodded. Deal. And Ethan? Yeah? Thank you for coming here, for not letting me run. Always. He kissed her forehead. Now, do you have any more patients today, or can we get out of here? I have 2 more, but I'm done at 4. Can you come back then? I'll be here. He left her at the rehabilitation center and spent the rest of the day thinking about what she'd said, about fear and assumptions and the constant weight of other people's judgments. He'd been so focused on proving his commitment that he'd missed how much she was still struggling with her own worth, how deeply she'd internalized the message that her disability made her less deserving of love. That evening, after he picked Noah up from school and helped him with homework, Ethan called Sarah. I need advice, he said when she answered. About Lena? Diane said you two had a fight. Not a fight exactly, more like a breakthrough. But Sarah, she's terrified I'm going to leave her, and I don't know how to convince her I'm not. You can't convince her, not with words anyway. You have to show her. I've been showing her for 3 months. Then show her bigger. Show her you're not just willing to deal with her disability. Show her you embrace it as part of who she is. Show her you're thinking about a future that includes both of you. Sarah paused. Are you thinking about a future with her? Ethan looked at the living room where Noah was building with blocks, humming to himself. He thought about Lena helping with homework, about Saturday mornings at the farmer's market, about the way she fit into their lives like she'd always been there. Yeah, he said quietly. I am. Then tell her that. Tell her you're not going anywhere because you're already planning forever. It's too soon for that kind of talk. Is it? Ethan, you're both in your 30s. You've both been through hell. You know what you want. If you're sure about her, tell her. Stop treating this like a casual relationship when it's clearly not. What if I scare her off? What if you don't? What if telling her the truth is exactly what she needs to hear? He sat with that thought after they hung up. 3 months wasn't long in the grand scheme of things, but when you'd already lost everything once, you learned to recognize what mattered faster. You didn't waste time playing it safe or pretending you felt less than you did, and Ethan knew with absolute certainty that he loved Lena Hart. He picked her up at 4, and they drove to the park where they'd taken Noah that first Saturday. It was empty on a weekday afternoon, just the 2 of them and the mountains and the sound of water rushing over rocks. They sat on a bench overlooking the pond, and Lena said, I talked to my therapist this afternoon. Called her during lunch after you left. Yeah? I told her about last night, about pushing you away. She said I was self-sabotaging because I don't believe I deserve you. And what do you think? I think she's probably right. I've spent 4 years believing that my disability makes me less than, that I'm damaged goods, that anyone who wants to be with me is either desperate or delusional. She turned to look at him. But you're neither of those things, which means I have to reconsider my assumptions about myself. Lena, you're not damaged goods. You're not less than. You're exactly enough. I'm starting to believe that when I'm with you. But when we're out in public and people stare, all those old voices come back. The ones that say I'm broken, that I don't deserve love, that you're making a mistake. Ethan took her hand. Those voices are liars, and I know you can't just turn them off, but maybe we can start drowning them out with the truth. What truth? That I love you. The words hung in the air between them, simple and terrifying and absolutely true. Lena's eyes went wide. What? I love you, Lena. I love your strength and your honesty, and the way you help Noah with his math homework. I love how you refuse to let your disability define you, even though it's part of your story. I love that you cry when you're overwhelmed instead of pretending you're fine. I love you, and your wheelchair doesn't change that. It's just part of who you are. And who you are is someone I want to build a future with. Tears were streaming down her face again, but this time she was smiling. You love me? Yes. I know it's fast, and I know we're still figuring things out, but I'm tired of pretending I don't know how I feel. I love you. And I need you to hear that and believe it, especially when those voices in your head are telling you otherwise. I love you too. The words came out in a rush, like she'd been holding them back for weeks. I've been so scared to say it because I thought if I did, I'd jinx everything. But I love you, Ethan. I love how patient you are with Noah. I love how you never make me feel like my wheelchair is a burden. I love that you stayed that first night when I begged you to leave. I love you so much it terrifies me. He leaned over and kissed her, tasting salt from her tears and feeling something settle in his chest that had been restless for 3 years. When they pulled apart, both of them were crying and laughing at the same time. So what now? Lena asked. Now we keep doing what we've been doing, but without the fear, without holding back. We love each other, and we figure out the rest as we go. What about Noah? He already loves you. He told me last week he thinks we need you. So yeah, we figure out how to be a family, the three of us. If that's what you want. Is that what you want? Ethan thought about his son asking if Lena would come to his concert, about the easy way she fit into their dinner table conversations, about how the house felt warmer when she was in it. Yes, that's exactly what I want. Lena kissed him again, and this time it felt like a promise. Like they were both agreeing to stop running from the possibility of happiness and start running toward it instead. They stayed at the park until the sun started to set, talking about what a future together might look like. Lena admitted she'd been afraid to think that far ahead, afraid to want too much. Ethan told her about the nights he'd lain awake wondering if he was betraying Michelle's memory by falling in love again. Do you still feel that way? Lena asked. No. I think Michelle would want me to be happy, would want Noah to have someone who loves him the way you do. And I think loving you doesn't erase what I had with her. It just proves that my heart is big enough to hold both the past and the future. I like that. The idea that we don't have to choose between honoring what we've lost and embracing what we're finding. Exactly. They drove back to Lena's apartment as darkness settled over the mountains. At her door, she said, "Do you want to come in?" I should probably get back to Noah. Mrs. Chen is watching him, but I know, family comes first. That's one of the things I love about you. She smiled. Go home to your son. But Ethan? Yeah? Thank you for today, for not letting me push you away, for loving me even when I'm scared. Thank you for letting me stay. He kissed her goodnight and drove home feeling lighter than he had in years. When he got there, Noah was already in his pajamas, sitting at the kitchen table with Mrs. Chen and working on a drawing. How was your day, buddy? Ethan asked. Good. I drew a picture for Lena. Noah held up a crayon drawing of 3 stick figures holding hands, one tall, one medium-sized, and one in what was clearly meant to be a wheelchair. Do you think she'll like it? Ethan's throat tightened. I think she'll love it. Can we give it to her at my concert on Friday? She's still coming, right? She's still coming. And yes, we can give it to her then. Mrs. Chen gathered her things and headed home, and Ethan tucked Noah into bed with the drawing carefully placed on his nightstand. As he was turning out the light, Noah said, Dad, are you going to marry Lena? The question caught Ethan completely off guard. What makes you ask that? Because you love her, and she loves you. That's what people do when they love each other, right? They get married? Sometimes, but not always. Marriage is a big decision, buddy. It's not something you rush into. But you're thinking about it. It wasn't a question. Ethan sat back down on the edge of the bed. Yeah, I'm thinking about it. Would that be okay with you? Noah was quiet for a moment, his fingers gripping his stuffed bear. Would she be my new mom? No. Nobody can replace your mom. Lena would be something different. Someone who loves you and takes care of you, but in her own way. Your mom will always be your mom. But I could call her mom if I wanted to, eventually. Ethan's chest felt too tight. If you wanted to, and if she was okay with it, then yes, but only if it felt right to you. Noah nodded slowly, processing this. I think I'd like that. Having a mom again. It gets lonely sometimes, just the two of us. I know, buddy. I feel that too. So when are you going to ask her to marry you? Despite everything, Ethan laughed. I don't know. We've only been together 3 months. That's pretty fast. But you already know you love her, and she already loves us. So why wait? It was the same logic Sarah had used, filtered through the straightforward reasoning of an 8-year-old. And maybe they were both right. Maybe when you knew, you knew. Maybe all the waiting in the world wouldn't make the decision any clearer. I'll think about it, Ethan said, kissing Noah's forehead. Now get some sleep. You've got school tomorrow. Okay. Love you, Dad. Love you too. Ethan went downstairs and sat alone in the dark living room, thinking about the future he just admitted he wanted. Marriage, a blended family. A life built on the foundation of loss, but reaching towards something new. It should have felt too soon, should have felt like he was moving too fast or forgetting Michelle too easily. But it didn't. It felt like exactly what was supposed to happen next. He pulled out his phone and texted Lena. Noah drew you a picture. He wants to give it to you at his concert. Also, he asked when I'm going to marry you. Her response came quickly. He what? Apparently 8-year-olds don't believe in taking things slow. What did you tell him? That I'm thinking about it. There was a long pause. Then, are you? Really? Ethan stared at the screen, his heart pounding. This was it. The moment where he could back off, make a joke, pretend he wasn't as serious as he actually was. Or he could tell the truth. He chose truth. Yes. I know it's fast. I know we're still figuring things out, but I can't imagine my future without you in it. So yeah, I'm thinking about it. I'm thinking about it too. Is that crazy? To think about forever after 3 months? Maybe. But I've learned that life is too short to waste time pretending you don't know what you want. And I want you. I want us. I want that too. I'm just scared of messing it up. Then we'll mess it up together, and we'll figure it out. That's what people who love each other do. Okay? Okay? Okay, let's think about forever. Let's stop being scared and start believing this is real. Ethan smiled at his phone, feeling something settle in his chest that felt like coming home. They weren't engaged, hadn't even talked about the logistics of building a life together, but they'd acknowledged the possibility. And that was enough for now. The concert was Friday night, and Lena arrived early with flowers for Noah and a nervous smile. The elementary school auditorium was packed with parents and grandparents, everyone armed with cameras and phones to capture their children's performances. Ethan saved Lena a seat on the aisle where her wheelchair would fit, and when Noah spotted them from backstage, his whole face lit up. The concert itself was exactly what you'd expect from a group of 8-year-olds. Enthusiastic, slightly off-key, and absolutely perfect. Noah sang his heart out, and when it was over, he ran straight to Lena and handed her the drawing he'd made. "I made this for you," he said shyly. Lena looked at the 3 stick figures, and her eyes filled with tears. "Noah, this is beautiful. Can I keep it?" "That's why I made it, so you'd remember we want you to stay." She pulled him into a hug, and Ethan watched his son wrap his small arms around her neck and hold on tight. When they pulled apart, Lena was crying and Noah was grinning. "I'll keep this forever," she promised. They went for ice cream after. The 3 of them squeezed into a booth at the local shop. Noah chattered about the concert and his upcoming field trip, and Lena listened with the kind of attention that made him feel heard. Ethan watched them and thought about Noah's question from earlier in the week. When are you going to marry her? Not if. When. Because his son, like Ethan himself, had already decided this was the future they wanted. Later that night, after they dropped Lena at home and Noah was asleep, Ethan sat in his room and looked at the photo of Michelle on his nightstand. She was smiling, frozen in a moment of joy that felt both impossibly close and impossibly far away. "I'm going to ask her to marry me," he said quietly to the photo. "I know it's fast. I know you've only been gone 3 years. But I think you'd understand. I think you'd want me to be happy, want Noah to have someone who loves him the way Lena does." He paused. "I'll never forget you, never stop loving you. But I'm learning that my heart is big enough to hold both of you, and I think that's okay." The photo didn't answer, of course, but Ethan felt something settle anyway. Permission, maybe. Or just acceptance that moving forward didn't mean leaving behind. He opened his laptop and started researching rings. 2 weeks later, Ethan found himself standing in a jewelry store, staring at a display of engagement rings that all looked simultaneously perfect and completely wrong. The jeweler, a patient woman in her 60s, had shown him at least 20 options, and he still couldn't decide. "What is she like?" the woman asked. "Traditional, modern, simple, or ornate?" "I don't know," Ethan admitted. "We haven't talked about rings." "But you have talked about marriage." "Sort of. We've acknowledged we're thinking about it." The jeweler smiled knowingly. "And you want to make it official." "I want to show her I'm serious. That this isn't just something I'm considering in theory, that I'm ready to actually do this." "Then you need a ring that says that." She pulled out a simple platinum band with a single diamond. This one is classic, timeless. It says, "I'm choosing you, and I'm confident in that choice." No apologies, no hesitation, just commitment. Ethan looked at the ring and felt something click into place. That's the one. He bought it that afternoon and kept it hidden in his sock drawer, waiting for the right moment. But the right moment proved elusive. Every time he thought about proposing, something got in the way. Work calls in the middle of the night, Noah's school projects, Lena's busy schedule at the rehab center. Life, basically, doing what life did. 3 weeks passed, then 4. The ring sat in his drawer, waiting. Meanwhile, Lena was having her own crisis of confidence. She'd told Ethan she was ready to believe in their future, but saying it and actually trusting it were two different things. Every time she let herself imagine a life with him and Noah, the fear crept back in. What if he changed his mind? What if she wasn't enough? What if her disability became too much for him to handle long term? She talked about it with her therapist, with Diane, with the support group she'd been attending on and off for the past 4 years. Everyone told her the same thing, that she needed to trust Ethan's words, trust his actions, trust that love could be real even when it felt too good to be true. But trust wasn't something Lena had in abundance, not anymore. It all came to a head on a Saturday morning in early June. Ethan had planned a surprise, a trip back to the mountain overlook where he'd first told her he loved her. He'd packed a picnic, coordinated with Mrs. Chen to watch Noah, and asked Lena to block off the whole day. They drove up the familiar winding road, and when they reached the trailhead, Lena said, "I can't believe you're making me hike again. I'm still sore from last time." "It's worth it, trust me." They made their way up the trail, slower this time because Ethan had packed a heavier backpack. When they reached the overlook, he spread out a blanket and unpacked sandwiches, fruit, and a thermos of lemonade. "This is perfect," Lena said, looking out over the valley. "I love it up here." "I know, that's why I brought you back." They ate in comfortable silence, and afterward, Lena lay back on the blanket and closed her eyes against the warm sun. Ethan watched her, this woman who'd crashed into his life with tears and fear and somehow become essential to his existence. He thought about the ring in his pocket, about the question he'd been carrying for weeks. But before he could work up the courage to ask it, Lena said, "I need to tell you something." His heart sank. "Okay." She sat up and looked at him, her expression serious. "I've been thinking a lot about us, about our future. And I realized I've been waiting for you to fail, waiting for the moment when you prove that everyone else was right, that I'm too broken, too complicated, too much work." "Lena, let me finish. I've been waiting for you to fail, and you haven't. You show up every day. You love Noah and include me in his life. You help me with my wheelchair without making me feel helpless. You defend me to strangers who stare. You've done everything right, Ethan. Everything. And it terrifies me because I don't know what to do with that. I don't know how to accept being loved this well." "So what are you saying?" "I'm saying I need to make a choice. I can keep waiting for the other shoe to drop, keep protecting myself from potential hurt, keep holding back pieces of my heart just in case you leave. Or I can choose to trust you, to believe that what we have is real and permanent and worth the risk." She took a shaky breath. "And I choose trust. I choose you. Fully, completely, without reservation. I'm done being scared." Ethan felt something break open in his chest. "You mean that?" "Yes. I love you, Ethan Brooks. I love Noah. I love the life we're building together, and I want all of it, the hard parts, the complicated parts, the beautiful parts. I want forever with you." He pulled the ring box from his pocket. Lena's eyes went wide. "What are you doing?" "Asking you the question I've been too scared to ask for the past 6 weeks." He opened the box, revealing the platinum band with its single diamond. "Lena Hart, I love you more than I thought it was possible to love someone again. You brought light back into my life when I thought I'd be in the dark forever. You love my son like he's your own. You make me want to be better, braver, more honest. I know we've only been together a few months, but I also know that life is too short to waste time pretending I don't know what I want. And I want you. I want to marry you, build a family with you, grow old with you. Will you marry me?" Lena was crying, her hands covering her mouth, her whole body shaking. "You bought a ring." 6 weeks ago. I've been carrying it around waiting for the perfect moment. But I realize there is no perfect moment. There's just this, you and me, and the choice to build something together. Yes. The word came out as a sob. Yes, I'll marry you. Yes to all of it. Ethan slipped the ring onto her finger and it fit perfectly, catching the sunlight and throwing tiny rainbows across the blanket. Then he pulled her into his arms and kissed her while she cried and laughed and whispered, yes, over and over again like a prayer. When they finally pulled apart, both of them were crying. Lena looked at the ring on her hand, then back at Ethan. I can't believe you've been carrying this around for 6 weeks. I was waiting for you to be ready. I'm ready now. I'm so ready. She kissed him again. How are we going to tell Noah? Actually, he already knows I was going to ask. He's the one who pushed me to do it sooner rather than later. Kids got better instincts than I do. He's going to be excited. He's going to lose his mind. He's been asking me every day when I was going to make it official. They stayed on the mountain for another hour, planning and dreaming and marveling at how their lives had changed in just a few months. When they finally made their way back down the trail, Lena kept looking at her ring, and Ethan kept looking at her, and both of them felt like they'd just stepped into a future they'd been too scared to imagine. At the truck, Lena said, Can we go tell Noah? Right now? You don't want to wait? Make an announcement? Tell your family first? I want to tell our son. Everything else can wait. Our son. The words settled into Ethan's chest like they'd been waiting there all along. They drove straight to Ethan's house, where Mrs. Chen was reading on the porch while Noah played in the yard. When the truck pulled up, the boy came running. Did you ask her? Did she say yes? He was practically vibrating with excitement. You told him? Lena looked at Ethan. I had to. He was going to explode from keeping the secret. Lena laughed and held out her hand, showing Noah the ring. I said yes. Noah let out a whoop and threw his arms around her waist. I knew it. I knew you'd say yes. Dad, she said yes. I heard, buddy. Mrs. Chen appeared on the porch, tears streaming down her face. Oh, this is wonderful. Just wonderful. Michelle would be so happy. The mention of Michelle's name created a moment of stillness. Noah pulled back from Lena, suddenly uncertain, and Ethan knelt down beside him. It's okay to be happy about this, buddy. Your mom would want us to be happy. I know, Noah's voice got very small. I miss her sometimes, even when I'm happy. Lena reached out and took Noah's hand. That's okay. You're allowed to miss her and be excited at the same time. Those feelings can live together. And I need you to know something. I'm not trying to replace your mom. Nobody could ever do that. I just want to love you and your dad and be part of your family. Is that okay with you? Noah looked up at her with those serious brown eyes. Can I call you Mom? Eventually? Lena's voice broke. If you want to, I would be honored. Okay? Then it's okay. He hugged her again, and this time when he pulled back, he was smiling. We should celebrate. Can we get ice cream? We can definitely get ice cream, Ethan said, his throat tight with emotion. They piled into the truck and drove to the ice cream shop, where Noah announced their engagement to the teenager behind the counter, the elderly couple in line behind them, and basically anyone who would listen. Lena laughed until she cried, and Ethan thought about how far they'd come from that first night at the cafe when she'd begged him to leave. That evening, after Noah was in bed, Lena and Ethan sat on the porch watching the stars emerge over the mountains. We should probably start planning, Lena said. Figure out when we want to get married, where, who to invite. What do you want? Big wedding? Small wedding? Small, just the people who matter. I don't need a big production. I just need you and Noah and the promise we're making to each other. That sounds perfect. What about timing? Should we wait? Do the long engagement thing? Ethan thought about the 6 weeks he'd carried the ring around, waiting for the right moment. About the 3 years he'd spent alone, convincing himself he didn't deserve another chance at love. About all the time they'd already lost to fear and hesitation. I don't want to wait, he said. Life's too short, and we've already wasted enough time being scared. Let's do it soon, this summer. Something simple and beautiful. Just us and the people we love. This summer, Lena repeated, testing the words. Then she smiled. Okay, let's do it. They spent the next few weeks planning a wedding that reflected who they were. Practical, meaningful, and completely unpretentious. They chose a date in late July, a small meadow near the mountain overlook for the ceremony, and a guest list that barely hit 30 people. Lena's parents flew in from Denver, still adjusting to their daughter's new life, but clearly happy to see her so loved. Sarah cried when they asked her to officiate, and Diane insisted on planning a small reception at Frank's Diner because where else would you celebrate? Noah took his role as ring bearer very seriously, practicing his walk down the aisle with Princess Sparkles as a stand-in for the rings. Lena found a simple white dress that worked with her wheelchair, and Ethan bought a new suit that made him feel like someone starting a new chapter instead of someone still mourning the old one. The night before the wedding, Ethan couldn't sleep. He lay in bed staring at the ceiling, thinking about Michelle and about the life they'd planned that had ended too soon. Thinking about Lena and the life they were about to begin, wondering if it was possible to honor both. He got up and went to Noah's room, where his son was also awake, clutching his stuffed bear. "Can't sleep either?" Ethan asked. "I'm nervous. What if I drop the rings?" "Then we pick them up. It's not a big deal, buddy." "What if Lena changes her mind?" "She won't. She loves us." Noah was quiet for a moment. "Do you think Mom knows? About tomorrow?" Ethan sat on the edge of the bed. "Yeah, I think she knows, and I think she's happy for us." "How do you know?" "Because she loved us. And when you love someone, you want them to be happy even when you're not there to see it. Your mom would want us to build a good life. She'd want you to have a parent who loves you the way Lena does. She'd want me to not be alone anymore." "I'm glad you're not alone," Noah said quietly. "It was scary when you were sad all the time." The admission broke Ethan's heart. "I'm sorry you had to see that." "It's okay. You're happy now. That's what matters." Noah paused. "Can I tell you a secret?" "Always." "Sometimes I talk to Mom, in my head. I tell her about school, and about Lena, and about you, and I think she listens." "I think she does too." "I'm going to tell her about tomorrow. About how we're a family now." Ethan pulled Noah into a hug and held on tight, this brave kid who'd lost so much and was still finding ways to be happy. "We've always been a family, buddy. Tomorrow we're just making it bigger." The wedding day arrived with cloudless skies and wildflowers blooming across the meadow. Ethan stood at the makeshift altar with Sarah beside him, watching as the small group of guests took their seats. Mrs. Chen was crying before the ceremony even started. Lena's parents held hands and looked proud despite their lingering worry about their daughter's choice. Then music started. A simple guitar played by one of Lena's co-workers, and Ethan's breath caught. Noah came down the aisle first, walking slowly and carefully with the rings tied to a small pillow. He grinned when he reached Ethan and whispered, "I didn't drop them. I never doubted you." Then Lena appeared at the end of the aisle, and Ethan forgot how to breathe. She was beautiful. Not in a conventional way, but in a way that was entirely her, strong and vulnerable and absolutely radiant. Her dark hair was loose around her shoulders, woven with small white flowers. Her dress was simple and elegant, and she decorated her wheelchair with ribbons and more flowers until it looked like something out of a fairy tale. She rolled down the aisle alone, refusing her father's offer to push her because this was her choice, and she wanted to come to Ethan under her own power. When she reached him, she was crying, and so was he. "You look incredible," he whispered. "So do you." Sarah cleared her throat, and the ceremony began. She'd written something beautiful about love and loss and second chances, about how the bravest thing two people could do was choose each other even after they'd learned how fragile life could be. She talked about Michelle and about Lena's accident, acknowledging the pain that had brought them to this moment, while celebrating the courage it took to move beyond it. When it came time for vows, Ethan went first. "Lena, when you cried the night we met and asked me to leave, I almost did. I almost walked away because it seemed like the kind thing to do. But something made me stay, and staying was the best decision I ever made. You've given me hope when I thought I'd never feel it again. You've loved my son when you didn't have to. You've shown me that hearts can break and heal at the same time, that we can honor what we've lost while embracing what we're finding. I promise to stay. Not just today, but every day. When things are hard, when you're scared, when the world feels too heavy, I'll stay. I'll love you through all of it. You're not alone anymore. Neither of us are. Lena was full-on sobbing now, and it took her a moment to collect herself enough to speak. Ethan, I spent 4 years convinced I was too broken to be loved, that my disability made me less than, that I'd lost my chance at a normal life when I lost the use of my legs. Then you walked into that cafe and you didn't see my wheelchair. You saw me. You've never treated me like I'm fragile or inspirational or anything other than a whole person. You've loved me through my fear, my doubt, my bad days. You've given me a son to love and a life I didn't think I deserved. I promise to trust you, to believe in us even when I'm scared, to love Noah like my own, to build a future with you that honors our pasts while reaching towards something new. You saved me that first night, and you've been saving me ever since. Sarah pronounced them married, and Ethan leaned down to kiss his wife while their guests cheered and Noah whistled and the mountain stood witness to a love born from loss and grown into something beautiful. The reception at Frank's was exactly what they'd wanted, unpretentious, joyful, and full of the people who'd supported them through their darkest times. Frank had closed the diner for the afternoon and decorated it with wildflowers and string lights. The food was simple, burgers and fries and pie, but it was perfect because it was theirs. Ethan's first dance with Lena happened right there in the middle of Frank's diner, with her wheelchair decorated in ribbons and him kneeling beside her so they were at the same height. They swayed to the music while Sarah cried and took pictures, and Noah danced circles around them with Princess Sparkles somehow smuggled into his pocket. Later, when the guests had gone home and it was just the three of them, Ethan, Lena, and Noah, they drove up to the mountain overlook one more time. They spread a blanket on the rock and lay there together, watching stars emerge in the darkening sky. "This is where it started," Lena said. "Where you first told me you loved me. And where I asked you to marry me," Ethan added. "And now we're married," Noah said, his voice full of wonder. "We're a real family." "We were always a real family," Lena said, pulling him close. "We just made it official today." They sat in silence for a while, the three of them, watching the sky darken and the stars multiply. Ethan thought about Michelle and about all the ways grief had shaped him. About the 3 years he'd spent convinced he'd never feel whole again. About the night Lena had cried and he'd chosen to stay. "What are you thinking about?" Lena asked. "How different my life is from what I thought it would be. How loss and love can exist in the same heart. How staying was the bravest thing I've ever done." "I'm glad you stayed." "So am I." Noah had fallen asleep against Lena's shoulder, his face peaceful in the starlight. She stroked his hair gently, and Ethan watched his wife care for his son and felt something he hadn't felt in years. Complete. Not because all the broken pieces were fixed, but because the pieces that remained had found a way to fit together into something new, something that honored the past while embracing the future, something that proved love didn't run out just because someone died. It just made room for new love to grow alongside it. They stayed on the mountain until Noah started to shiver, then drove home through the quiet streets to the house that was officially theirs now. Lena's apartment lease had ended the week before, and they'd moved her things in room by room, making space for her in every corner of their life. At home, they tucked Noah into bed together, both of them kissing his forehead while he mumbled sleepy words about how the wedding was the best day ever. Then they went to their own room, not just Ethan's, and sat on the bed in their wedding clothes, still too wired to sleep. "We did it," Lena said. "We actually did it. Did you doubt we would?" "Maybe a little. Old habits die hard." "Well, you're stuck with me now. Legally bound. No backing out." She laughed and kissed him. "I wouldn't back out if I could. This is exactly where I want to be." They changed out of their wedding clothes and lay in bed together, and Lena said, "Tell me something you've never told me before." "Like what?" "I don't know. Something true. Something that matters." Ethan thought about it. "I used to be angry at Michelle for dying, for leaving me alone with a traumatized kid and no idea how to fix either of us. I know that's not fair, but I couldn't help it. I was so angry for so long. And now? Now I'm grateful. Not that she died, but for the time we had. For Noah. For the way loving her taught me how to love at all. And I think if she could see us now, she'd be happy. She'd want this for us." "I think so too." Lena was quiet for a moment. "Can I tell you something I've never told anyone?" "Please." Sometimes I'm grateful for the accident." Ethan lifted his head to look at her. "What?" "Not for the paralysis or the pain or losing swimming, but for what it taught me, about strength and resilience and what actually matters in life. Before the accident, I was so focused on winning that I forgot to live. I had no real relationships, no interests outside the pool, no idea who I was beyond being fast in the water. The accident forced me to find out. And yeah, it was brutal, but it also made me who I am, and I like who I am now. I like who you are too." "I know, that's why I can say it, because you've shown me that my disability doesn't make me less. It just makes me different. And different can be beautiful." They fell asleep wrapped around each other, two people who'd been broken by life and found ways to heal in each other's arms. And in the room down the hall, Noah slept peacefully, no nightmares for the first time in months, because he finally felt safe enough to let go. The months that followed were an exercise in building normalcy. Lena officially moved in and made the house theirs, adding ramps, adjusting counters, filling the walls with photos of their growing family. Noah started calling her mom without fanfare or discussion, and Lena cried the first time she heard it but pretended she had allergies. Ethan's work continued as always, rescues in the mountains that sometimes went well and sometimes didn't. But now, when he came home from the hard calls, from the ones where they didn't find people in time, Lena was there. She understood trauma and loss in ways most people never would, and she knew when to talk and when to just hold him. Lena's work at the rehab center took on new meaning. She could tell her patients with absolute certainty that life after disability could include love, family, joy. She was living proof that the future they feared could actually be beautiful. One Saturday morning in late fall, almost a year after that first disastrous date, Ethan woke to find Noah and Lena in the kitchen making pancakes. They were laughing about something, flour dusted across both their faces, and the scene was so perfectly ordinary that it took his breath away. "What are you two troublemakers doing?" he asked. "Making breakfast," Noah said. "Mom's teaching me how to flip pancakes." "Mom, huh?" Lena met his eyes over Noah's head and smiled. "Is that okay?" "It's perfect." They ate breakfast together, the three of them, and afterward Noah asked if they could go to the mountain overlook. "It's our family place," he explained. "I want to see it." So they packed a picnic and drove up the familiar road, and when they reached the overlook, Noah ran to the edge to look out over the valley. "This is where you asked Mom to marry you," he called back. "It is. And where you told her you loved her." "That too." "It's a good place. I can see why you like it." They spread the blanket and ate sandwiches and cookies, and Noah talked about school and his friends and the piano lessons he'd started again. He was playing the songs his mother had taught him, reclaiming that piece of her memory without fear. As the afternoon stretched on, Ethan watched his wife and son throwing rocks at a tree trunk, trying to see who could hit it from farther away. Lena won, which made Noah accuse her of cheating, which made her laugh and challenge him to a rematch. This was what healing looked like. Not the absence of pain, but the presence of joy despite it. Not forgetting what you'd lost, but building something new from what remained. That night, after Noah was asleep, Lena found Ethan standing in the living room looking at a photo of Michelle. "You okay?" she asked. "Yeah, just remembering." "Good memories?" "The best. She would have liked you, you know. Would have appreciated how you loved Noah. I wish I could have met her." "Me too." He turned to face Lena. "But I'm also grateful for everything that brought us here. Even the hard parts. Especially the hard parts. Because they taught us who we are. Because they showed us what we're capable of surviving. And because surviving made us strong enough to try again." Lena rolled closer and took his hand. "I love you, Ethan Brooks." "I love you too, Lena Brooks." Brooks. She'd taken his name without hesitation, said it made her feel like she belonged somewhere, like she was part of something permanent. They stood there together in the quiet house, two people who'd been shattered by life and found ways to put themselves back together. Not perfectly, not without scars, but whole in a way that mattered more because of everything they'd survived to get there. Outside, snow began to fall, the first of the season. It covered the mountains in white silence, blanketing the world in new beginnings. And inside, A family built from loss and love and the courage to stay when everything said to run settled in for the night. Noah dreaming peacefully in his room, no fear left to wake him. Lena and Ethan wrapped around each other, grateful for second chances. A family that shouldn't have existed but did anyway, proof that broken pieces could fit together into something beautiful. That the worst first impressions could lead to the best love stories. That staying was always braver than running. And that love, real love, didn't run out just because life got hard. It just grew stronger, deeper, more resilient with every challenge it survived. This was their story. Not perfect, but real. Not easy, but worth it. Not the future any of them had imagined, but somehow better because they'd chosen it together. And on this quiet night, as snow fell on the mountains and three hearts beat in rhythm under one roof, that was more than enough. It was everything.